Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Mother Ganges speaking, O King, I do not wish to go down to the planet Earth, for there the people in general will bathe in my water to cleanse themselves of the reactions of their sinful deeds. When all these sinful reactions accumulate in me, how shall I become free from them? You must consider this very carefully. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvang sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can accept the reactions of anyone's sinful deeds and neutralize them because He is pavitra, pure, like the sun, which is never contaminated by any worldly infection. Tijiya sang nadoshaya vahne sarva bhujo yatha. One who is very powerful is not affected by any sinful activity. But here we see that Mother Ganges fears being burdened with the sins of the people in general who would bathe in her waters. This indicates that no one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is able to neutralize the reactions of sinful deeds, whether one's own or those of others. Sometimes the spiritual master, after accepting a disciple, must take charge of that disciple's past sinful activities, and being overloaded must sometimes suffer, if not fully, then partially, for the sinful acts of the disciple. Every disciple therefore must be very careful not to commit sinful activities after initiation. The poor spiritual master is kind and merciful enough to accept a disciple and partially suffer for that disciple's sinful activities. But Krishna, being merciful to his servant, neutralizes the reactions of sinful deeds for the servant who engages in preaching his glories. Even Mother Ganges feared the sinful reactions of the people in general and was anxious about how she would counteract the burden of these sins. Srila Prabhupada states here, as is stated in Shastra, quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas, that the spiritual master suffers for the sinful reactions, sinful acts of his disciple. That this is factually so, I have heard it challenged by two scholarly godbrothers of mine, who from various perspectives say that, well, actually the spiritual master doesn't accept the sinful reactions of the disciple. One, on the grounds that anyone who chants Hare Krishna is free from sinful reactions. A Krishna Nama Kare Sarva Papa Koi, as is stated in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that by chanting the name of Krishna once, Sarva Papa, all sins are destroyed. The other said that, well, if the spiritual master accepts reactions, then anyway he'd pass them on to his guru and it would go all the way up to Krishna. I'm not sure if that is a good logic, because one offers good things to the spiritual master, not sinful reactions. Here you are. Here's my dakshina, all my sinful reactions. You want more dakshina? All right, I'll go and offer you some more. I'll go and hit a few people on the head with a hatchet, and then you can accept the sinful reactions. Srila Prabhupada often spoke of this. He said that sometimes the spiritual master sees bad dreams as a reaction. And maybe it was Harish or one devotee wrote about this, how sometimes, of course it's a very intimate statement, but he heard Srila Prabhupada making some sound as if he was having some kind of bad dream. Another consideration is, as Srila Prabhupada writes here, that a powerful quotes from Bhagavatam, Tijiya Sangha Doshaya Bahne Sarva Bhujo Yata. This is a quotation from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which states that one who is very powerful is faultless and like fire. Anything which is thrown into fire, the fire consumes it. So the fire is not affected by anything, even some garbage which is thrown into it is burned up. So in the same way, even if there is some apparent fault in a very powerful person, this refers to a spiritually powerful person, they neutralize that by their own power. This is Shukadeva Goswami says that this is in, well, he gives the example of Lord Shiva, who drank poison, a large amount of poison, and he was not affected by that. He can do that. Not everyone can do that. In the same way, Krishna, although he may appear from the worldly point of view to be sinful in engaging in the ras, by engaging in rasa dance, circular dance with those women who appear to be the wives of others, although they're actually not. Even if it's considered that he might be faulty, it should not. He cannot be faulty because he consumes all sinful reactions. So one who is powerful is not affected by sinful reactions. So then again it may be said, well, the spiritual master is powerful by taking that role. Sarkshad haridvena samasta shastraya uttastatha bhagyata eva samhi. By taking the role of the representative of Krishna, becomes as if Krishna, as if Hari. Hari means he who takes away. Takes away what? Well, he takes away various things according to the level of the advancement of the devotee. In the beginning, he takes away the sinful reactions. He takes away the misconceptions. And then later on, he takes away the very mind of the devotee at various levels of advancement. So the spiritual master, as the representative of Hari, is powerful. But, so therefore he accepts the sinful reactions, or helps to neutralize them. But we see here that even Ganga Devi herself, who's come to this world for delivering the forefathers of Bhagirath, she came for that purpose, to free them from their sinful reaction. And then she stayed in the world. And in every activity that is orchestrated by Krishna's Leela Shakti, his energy or his potency for enacting pastimes, in every action, in every Leela, there are various purposes performed. So Ganga came to this world to deliver sinful people, not just the forefathers of Bhagirath. But even she's deputed for that purpose, that she accepts sinful reactions. But on the other hand, she herself is afraid of becoming overburdened with sinful reactions, even though she's so powerful herself, being power, the Sanskrit word in female form, Shaktimati. She's Shaktimati, but she herself realizes that she is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She does not have the power herself to neutralize the sinful reactions. Therefore, she feels afraid of that. Now, interestingly, who she came to deliver, they were burnt by the glance of anger of Kapila Dev, who's also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you might think that, well, they should have been delivered by that. Just like when Krishna, he kills demons, they get liberated, right? But in this case, it didn't happen. They had to remain. Exactly where, maybe in ghostly form, or they must have been somewhere, probably floating around in ghostly form for some time. That we may take also as the plan of the Lord. Ganga comes to this earth for various reasons. If we see the path of the Ganga, she flows down from on this earth sphere. She flows down. She comes, of course, from the foot through the coverings of the universe. She comes through the heavenly planets, and then she appears at Gomukh in Himalaya. And then she comes down in more or less a south-southeast course, and then turns to more east-southeast course, and flows more or less east. When she hits the plains at Haridwar, she flows more or less east until she comes to what is now called Malda district in West Bengal, and then takes a sharp turn right, the Ganga. But if you see the water, most of the water continues flowing east. But that water is called Padma. That's another river. It's considered another river. And the Ganga is considered the one with less water, until they put the Faraka dam. But anyway, that with less water flows south and goes through what is now called Calcutta, and then down to the Ganga Delta and to the sea. So, Bhagirath, he took a sharp, why the Ganga turns there? He took a sharp turn right, and just so happens that his path took him through Navadip. So the Ganga herself wanted to go there. She had another purpose in going there, that by going through Navadip, then I will be able to serve in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So she had her wish fulfilled. Worth accepting all the sinful reactions of all the people in the world if you can become a servant or instrumental in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, the spiritual master also, he also may accept the sinful reactions of others in the service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada wrote in one letter he said, I'm liberal in offering initiation. I may have to suffer so many sinful reactions, but what can I do? I have to serve the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, this may be a complex question, exactly how does this all work? How does it work that one who bathes in the Ganga becomes free from sinful reactions? There are sinful reactions they're in subtle form. They're not all released all at once. There's a big stockpile of sinful reactions, and they don't all get released at once. It may some sinful act that we perform now, it may be in 100 lifetimes that we get the reaction. Or it might be that we get a little now and a little more later, and it's extremely complex. As Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna couldn't work it out at all. It took him practically the whole Bhagavad Gita to understand how the workings of karma. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavyo piyatra mohitaha. Krishna told Arjuna the workings of what is karma, what is akarma. It's very difficult to understand, and even learned persons are bewildered in trying to understand this. So exactly how that works, how does it work that these subtle, sinful desires, they're not actually manifested as reactions yet? Well, manifest in our incarceration in the material world, but the full force of them, just like the full force. Someone's walking along and something happens. A tree falls over and breaks his leg or something like this. So that's understood to be a specific sinful reaction. That how does that become cleansed or neutralized? By touching the water of the Ganga or touching anything sacred. By touching tulasi, one becomes free from sinful reactions. By touching Gopi Chanda, one becomes free from sinful reactions. That's why it's good to wear tulsi beads and have Gopi Chanda. One reason, not the best. The best reason is because it's pleasing to Krishna. But even we sing that in Tulasi, Yani Kani Chapapani Brahma Hatyadi Kani. We sing that, which is the how even the sin of killing a Brahmana is neutralized step by step as we circumambulate Tulasi. And then in the song which we sing after that, it's right at the other end of that's the least reason why one should circumambulate Tulasi. It's not exactly a devotional motive to do so, although devotees chant this to chant the glories of Tulasi. But then during the song we sing the highest reason, the Seva Abhilasha, the desire to worship Radha and Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan. So how does this all work? It's quite complex. The spiritual master accepts a sinful reaction. Well, how do you accept a sinful reaction? You have to have a body to do that, right? It has to be a body in this material world to accept a sinful reaction. If you don't have a body in this material world, then how are you going to accept it? So, those who are wanting to offer dakshina to the spiritual master of sinful reactions, they better do all their sins as fast as they can before he passes away from this world. Because that's meant as a kind of perverted joke, by the way. Not to be taken seriously. Because once he's left this world, then there's no vehicle for, no medium for accepting those sinful reactions. On the other hand, the body of or one should never consider a spiritual master material. That's an offense. And the body of a pure devotee, or actually any Vaishnava, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that's not to be considered material. At the time of initiation, Dikha Kale Bhakta Kare Atta Shamapan Shri Kale Krishna Tare Kare Atta Sham. At the time of initiation, the devotee surrenders himself, and at that time Krishna accepts him as being on the same platform. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in this connection, Prabhu kahe Vaishnavaya Deha, what is that? Vaishnava Deha Prakrita Kabunai, a Prakrita Deha Vaishnav Chidanandamaya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the body of a Vaishnava is never to be considered material. It's always spiritual, full of spiritual bliss. He said this to Sanatana Goswami, who was apparently manifesting the symptoms of sinful reaction. Sanatana Goswami had arrived in Puri after passing through the forest Jharikanda, and due to contact, or touching or drinking some contaminated water, Sanatana Goswami's body was covered with what's that called? Sores, wet sores, what are they called? Weeping sores, yeah. So it's a nasty disease. One is always ritually impure. You can't go on the altar, weeping sores, because Sanatana Goswami was also, anyway, banned from entering the Puri temple. So he considered that this was a sinful, Sanatana Goswami considered this as a sinful reaction. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said there's no question of any sinful reaction. Because Vaishnava doesn't have any sinful, he's always pure. That also in Chaitanya Bhagavat we find that, what is that? Jato deko Vaishnava vyavahara duk nischoyjanya taha paranandashu. That if one sees a Vaishnava apparently unhappy, or one should understand, one shouldn't consider like that. One should consider that he's always full of spiritual bliss in all circumstances. So then where's the question of sinful reaction? Where's the question of sinful reactions for any devotee? Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. The devotee, by Krishna's grace, is free from sinful reactions. So it's a complex subject. On one hand, we say the spiritual master accepts his sinful reactions. On the other hand, he's beyond all sinful reactions himself. So, maybe understood like this, that it's seen, or that's another question, it's generally accepted by Vaishnava acharyas that Bhakti destroys all sinful reactions except prarabdha karmas. There are various stages. Kuta, bijam, phalonmukha. These are various stages of sin. Kuta means the stockpile of sinful desires, or which makes the general tendency to act in a sinful way. Then bijam, there's the from the stockpile emerge various specific sinful desires. And then phalonmukha, that which is about to fructify, and these are all also categorized. And then reactions, aparabdha, prarabdha, those that are destined to come and those that are already going on. So as long as one is within this world, within this body, then the body itself the material body is a symbol of sinful reaction. It is gained, or it is attained rather, because of sinful reaction. So generally Vaishnava acharyas, they say that, Bhakti destroys all sinful reactions except those which are already going on, because we see the body is it's still there. And that one does get, even though one is performing devotional service, one is subjected to heat, cold, hunger, thirst, and so on. And trees falling on your head maybe, or various things like that. Stubbing your toe, the classic example of karmic reaction. So prarabdha, that is not taken, still one has to suffer this. But the Gauriya Acharya said that's also. As soon as one takes to devotional service, that is also destroyed. But then we see that the Vaishnavas, they suffer apparent sickness, pain, heat, cold, etc. But that is understood that the devotees, they are under the protection of Krishna's internal energy. Mahatmanas tu mang parita daiving praktimashitaha bhajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutadimabhyam. Those who are ekanta bhaktas, ananya bhaktas, they have no other recourse but Krishna, no other shelter but Krishna. They are fully under the shelter of Krishna's divine potency. So, even though a devotee may appear to be suffering sinful or pious reactions also. At the same time, it's understood that it's not exactly Maya giving a reaction, but the internal energy acts as just like the external energy, but it's in a different way. The external energy acts on the conditioned soul to bind him in the material world, to give sinful reactions and pious reactions also. They're both ultimately sinful. And also to offer more opportunity for creating more pious and sinful reactions, and offering an opportunity for the conditioned soul to indulge in his fantasy of Ishvaro ham aham bhogi siddho ham balavan sukhi. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I am perfect, I am powerful, I am happy. Whereas the internal, this apparent reactions on a pure devotee is a different. Maya is acting in a different way. The internal potency to help the devotee become free from any residual material attachments and come to Krishna. And if the devotee is not fully bhajantyananya manaso, not fully worshipping Krishna, if the devotee is not on that platform, is not fully under the shelter of the spiritual energy, that means that he may be again subject to the influence of the external energy. So it's quite a complex subject. But the conclusion is, as Srila Prabhupada quotes here, Sarvadhaman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishami mashucha. We just fully surrender to Krishna, we don't really have to worry. That's the point, that we may analyze all these complexities, but ultimately we have to surrender to Krishna, and then all problems finished. And there isn't any time, so this class is also finished. On that note, unless anyone has a question which can be answered in less than 2 minutes, because I don't want to get a sinful reaction for breaking the rule of going over time. Although you can deliver me from my sinful reactions. Yes, please. I can get permission from the GBC to go over time. Yes, to ask the temple.
We do it every day.
Oh.
Raj, thank you for your class. Actually, I was just this morning listening to some lectures that His Holiness Bhanu Swami was giving on the...
That was one of the two devotees who I discussed with on this point, who said that actually spiritual master doesn't accept the sinful reaction, even though it's clearly stated in Shastra, and Prabhupada states repeatedly in his books. So,
well, he was referring to the characteristics of Bhakti that are described right at the beginning.
Klesha, the first symptom, it destroys
anyway, well,
suffering.
Since you've had a discussion with him, I won't go into that, but I wanted to ask you specifically, you said, you gave the example of a tree branch falling or something.
Yeah.
Are there specific reactions for specific sinful activities?
Oh yes, there are specific reactions for specific sinful activities. As we find in Manu, he says things like, if you're, I don't remember many of them, but I just happen to remember one, that if one who lies will stutter, like that.
Bhagavatam mentioned one person had sex with the spiritual master's wife, get tuberculosis.
If you violate the spiritual master's bed by indulging in sinful reaction with his wife, then one is subject to tuberculosis. Srila Prabhupada also wrote in one of his purports that the Mayavadis, for their sin of being envious of Krishna, they can become a jackal or a stone. It's quite complex. Karmana daiva netrena jantur deho bhakti. We get our body under the supervision of the Supreme Lord and the demigods. So it's pretty complex. How you get a specific body to to live out a set of specific sinful reactions. And then you have to be born in a situation, it's all orchestrated by Maya and the demigods and Krishna, that you come in a certain family because the certain father and mother have a kind of, they have a karmic drama due to them to have this kind of person in their family. And the person who's born there is also destined to have that kind of parents. And then as you go on in the human life, you create more and more reactions which may manifest in that life. And so it's like you have to, the demigods must be constantly adjusting the whole thing. It's very extremely complex. I mean, astrologers can give some, if they're good astrologers, they can give some idea, but you can't tell exactly what's going to happen at any moment. And it may be... One devotee astrologer told me that one of his clients or someone had died young, and he looked through his chart several times, but he just couldn't find anything that indicated that. Then he looked at his wife's chart and found that she had widow yoga, that who she married, by marrying them, they will. She made him die, so to speak. So, that's another matter. That sinful reactions, they can be passed around, as we find in the case of Indra. He gave his sinful reactions to what? The trees, the earth, women, and water. Did I say water? The earth. So, if just by being with sinful persons, we become affected by that, and we can feel that if we go. Just like if we go into, we're doing book distribution, we go into a bar, we may be going for the best possible purpose, but at the same time you feel the sinful atmosphere. And Prabhupada said that even devotees, they're preaching, but they may become affected by that. So he said devotees should come once a year to Mayapur, chant and dance and bathe in the Ganga, become refreshed and go back to the West to preach. Yeah, so more questions.
Some time ago in Vrindavan, one devotee was scholar of the devotees explaining how Lord Shiva's body is different because it's completely Satchidananda, and that he was comparing with even like devotees, and I was very disturbed by it because you quoted also from Chaitanya Charitamrita how this devotee's body is completely spiritual, but then just recently actually I just realized that it's there in Nectar Devotion that Lord Shiva has certain qualities. In the qualities of Lord Krishna, it's described how so many qualities are living entities up to Lord Brahma, and from Lord Brahma to Lord Shiva. And one of those qualities is that he has a Satchidananda body. So, can you explain that? Is that Satchidananda different from the Satchidananda body of
well, when we say this, the body of a pure devotee is fully spiritual, obviously it's not fully spiritual or it would appear, I wouldn't say obviously, it would appear it's not spiritual in the way that Krishna's body is, because it does appear to be subject to old age and disease, which Krishna's body is not subject to old age. Sometimes for his pastimes he becomes apparently subject to disease. The example given in Shastra is that of iron, when placed in fire, takes on the quality of fire. It's still distinct from fire, but in many ways it is the same as fire. But at the same time it's distinct. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, from that, if you touch a hot iron, it acts as fire. It's imbibed the quality of fire, and it acts in the same way as fire. But at the same time, there are specific differences. This is Bheda Bheda, Vishishta like that. There's sameness and difference. At the same time, we see that the body of a sannyasi, or a pure, specifically of a sannyasi, is buried, not burned, because it's considered to be Jnanagni Dagda Karmanam. It's already burned in the fire of knowledge. So there's no need to burn the body. It's not a vehicle of sinful reaction. It's worshipable. So it's placed in samadhi. Yeah.
There's one letter that probably was very interesting that one temple president had asked if the temple president would take any sinful reaction. You familiar with this letter?
Yeah.
And since he recommended such and such anybody in the temple, and Prabhupada said, why some? Why not all? Now, do you take that as Prabhupada suggesting in any way, or there was never any further explanation?
It's a bit risky to try to guess the psychology of one's spiritual master. It could be taken like this, that the temple president should think of it like that. He should feel so responsible, that I'm fully responsible. That why should I want to dump sinful reactions on my spiritual master? There was Panchadravida Maharaj gave the example of Yayati when Prabhupada was lying on his bed in Vrindavan in 1977, and Panchadravida offered that just like Yayati he'd offered his youth to Yadu, wasn't it? Then Puru, yeah. Then he said, you take my youth and I'll take your old age. He was offering that. Yeah.
Okay. The other comment was that when Swami, in the beginning of Vidyakthamala, there's one shloka introductory where he said, just as a low-born person may sought fire to purify gold, and although the gold itself is pure, although he may be low-born, just a person setting a fire. So he was comparing himself, Rupa Goswami, that this way the Vidyakthamala might purify the dirt within the hearts of the devotees. Now, why was he saying like this? That he knows there's dirt in the heart of the devotees, and what is that dirt? Or is that, how do you understand it?
How do you understand it? Well, the gradual process of devotional service is not overnight or instant. That's why we have the process of sadhana bhakti. Again, we have that bhajantya nanya manaso, one who's fully absorbed in service to Krishna is fully purified and fully freed from the influence of this material world. And one who isn't is still subject to be pulled into Maya. So,
but even in those days, we know he wasn't writing after common, not people could read Vidyakthamala. They didn't have Prabhupada translating it anywhere else. You have to be pretty elevated person.
One had to be very elevated to read it, yeah. Well, that's even stated by Jaidev, I believe, in Gita Govinda. So maybe that they foresaw others also reading it, or that reading it, hearing it. A pure devotee may consider that even a moment's not in full absorption thinking of Krishna is a contamination. They may think like that. Yeah. There's hands up on this side too, but I guess the mic will gradually get over there.
This is a questionable comment. Just a little both. Sometimes this is a concern. Sometimes when we talk about
can you please speak into
pious and sinful, sometimes we talk. It's in a general way as devotees. it's like seems like we're talking in terms of sense gratification, but at other times we seem to be talking in terms of what's favorable for devotional service and what's not favorable to devotional service.
Yeah,
they're
contextual terms.
Yeah.
We have to see the context.
And then the second question is...
Bhaktivinoda Thakur analyzes there are three kinds of punya. One which is... and that's got a lot to do with the motive of the performer. One is punya that is conducive to getting material enjoyment. Another kind is that which is inducive for getting liberation. Another one kind which is inducive for bhakti. So just like bathing in the Ganga, or even chanting Hare Krishna for that matter, depending on one's motive, one will get a different kind of result.
Yes, sometimes when we're talking, us guys, it sounds to my ear, sometimes we're a little bit too worried about sinful and highs in terms of sense gratification. Whereas our real concern, I assume, is really what's favorable to devotional.
Yeah, we shouldn't be concerned with sense gratification at all, right? We shouldn't be thinking how to get sense gratification. Yeah, all right. So.
It's stated that Agastya Muni had swallowed the whole ocean. And when he was asked to regurgitate it, he said he already digested it. And then it was foretold in the future the Ganges would come to fill up the whole ocean, but there was no mention of this in the Mahabharata, in the Bhagavatam. But I know it was in the Mahabharata stated that he had actually swallowed the ocean. I don't know, but so I was wondering, there was no mention at all.
Well, Bhagavatam doesn't mention everything. Nothing mentions everything. Everything is a big topic. Bhagavatam mostly gives stories in shortened form. Yeah, put the mic. Please get the mic over here. Yeah, Bhagavatam most of the narrations in Bhagavatam are given in more elaborately in other Puranas. The essence, the devotional essence, is given in Bhagavatam. Another thing to consider is that when Sutta Goswami was speaking, he had already spoken the other Puranas before that. Anyway.
Who are the personalities who know all of the laws of karma?
Who are the personalities who know all the laws of karma? Krishna.
What about Yamaraj?
Yamaraj, yeah, he should know also.
What about Lord Brahma?
Lord Brahma. Well, they should. They may know as much as Krishna wants them to, or empowers them to. You mean the complexities of how it works?
Well, in one sense, because Yamaraj has to make certain decisions, obviously he knows.
Yeah, but he made a mistake at least once, right?
Right, yeah.
So
this is
it's difficult to understand. It's extremely complex. As much as Krishna wants one to understand, one is empowered to understand.
So, are you aware of any statement in the scriptures that speaks about?
Apart from Krishna, I'm not aware of any statement of anyone else knowing to the same extent that Krishna does. But there are certain principles which Krishna explains in Bhagavatam. The complexities are maybe extremely complex. It may not be necessary for us to understand them all either. So, Hare Krishna.